Some connections are felt long before they are spoken. You sense it in the pauses, in the way someone looks at you a second longer than necessary, in the silence that feels heavy with meaning. There's a kind of attraction that doesn't announce itself loudly. It waits. It shows up in unguarded moments, in quiet concern, in the way two people orbit each other without ever colliding. And the most dangerous part, you start to feel it too, before you can explain why. If you've ever wondered whether something real was unfolding right in front of you without a single word, this isn't just a video. It's a mirror. Stay until the end because clarity changes everything. Comment your location and subscribe to the channel for more insights like this. When attraction is unspoken, it rarely hides as well as people think. The first place it reveals itself is in behavior, quiet, unintentional changes that occur the moment you enter someone's emotional field. Psychology tells us that the body reacts faster than the mind can edit. Before words are chosen, before intentions are filtered, behavior shifts. Someone who feels drawn to you may become more alert, more focused, or oddly self-conscious in your presence. Their posture changes, their energy tightens or softens. They may speak more carefully, laugh a little quicker, or hesitate just enough to reveal that something internal is happening. What's important here is consistency, not performance. Anyone can act interested for a moment. Unspoken attraction shows up repeatedly, even when there's nothing to gain. You'll notice they orient themselves towards you without realizing it, angle their body in your direction, or subtly mirror your gestures and rhythm. These are not rehearsed signals. They are reflexes. The nervous system aligns with what it finds meaningful, and attraction creates meaning before it creates language. There is also a noticeable shift in attention. When someone is attracted but hasn't said it, their focus sharpens around you. Distractions fade faster. Multitasking becomes harder. They listen differently not just to respond, but to understand. This isn't politeness, it's prioritization. Philosophically, attention is one of the purest forms of value. We give it instinctively to what matters, and when someone's attention consistently bends toward you, it's rarely accidental. You may also sense a change in emotional tone. Conversations feel slightly charged, even when the topic is ordinary. There's a subtle intensity beneath the surface, a feeling that something more is being held back. This tension isn't uncomfortable, it's alive. It comes from the internal conflict between desire and restraint. They want to lean in, but they're holding the line. And that restraint, paradoxically, makes the attraction more visible. Another key signal is adjustment. People unconsciously adapt themselves around those they're drawn to. They soften their edges, amplify shared values, or become more expressive versions of themselves. This isn't manipulation, it's alignment. Attraction invites people to become more of who they think they should be in the presence of someone they admire. The mistake many people make is waiting for words to confirm what behavior has already made clear. But behavior is often the truest language we have. When actions shift consistently, when energy changes predictably, when presence feels different in a way that can't be explained away, that's not coincidence. That's communication without speech, and the question becomes not whether you're sensing something real, but whether you're willing to trust what you already know. Because once you learn to read behavior honestly, you stop waiting for permission to see the truth, and that's where clarity begins. When attraction goes unspoken, it doesn't disappear. It redirects itself into emotional investment. This is where psychology becomes especially revealing, because human beings don't consistently invest in what they don't care about. Time, attention, memory, and concern are limited resources. We allocate them selectively, often without conscious intent. When someone begins to offer these resources to you in quiet, reliable ways, it signals something deeper than casual interest. You'll notice it first in the details. They remember small things you never announced as important of, hand comments, preferences, moments you assumed were forgettable. This isn't accidental. Memory is shaped by emotional weight. The mind retains what the heart marks as significant. When someone recalls details about your inner world, they're not just listening, they're storing you. And that level of cognitive and emotional storage usually belongs to people we're attached to, not merely acquainted with. Emotional investment also reveals itself through availability, not dramatic availability, not grand gestures, but a consistent presence that doesn't demand attention yet always seems to be there. They check in without needing a reason. They respond with thoughtfulness rather than speed. They make space for your emotional reality, even when it's inconvenient. From a philosophical standpoint, this is care in its purest form, attention offered without a transaction. There's also a noticeable shift in how they engage with your experiences. Your successes genuinely matter to them. Your frustrations linger in their mind. They ask follow-up questions, not to fill silence, but because they want to understand how things land inside you. This depth of curiosity is rare. It reflects an internal orientation toward your well-being, as if your emotional state has begun to register as relevant to their own. What makes unspoken attraction complex is that this investment often comes wrapped in restraint. They give, but carefully. They support, but don't overstep. This balance reveals an internal negotiation, the desire to be close paired with the fear of exposure or rejection. So instead of confessions, they offer consistency. Instead of declarations, they offer presence. And presence, over time, is far more revealing than words spoken once. Many people misinterpret this as friendliness because they're trained to look for intensity rather than reliability. But intensity can be impulsive. Emotional investment is deliberate, even when it's unconscious. It shows up over time, not all at once. And it holds steady, even when there's nothing immediate to gain. The real question isn't whether emotional investment means attraction. The question is whether you're paying close enough attention to recognize it when it appears quietly, without announcement. Because once you understand how care reveals itself, you stop overlooking the people who are already showing you how they feel every single day. When attraction remains unspoken, it often expresses itself through the creation of moments rather than declarations. Words are powerful, but they are deliberate and require courage. Silence, however, does not hinder the heart. It finds another way to communicate. People who feel drawn to you but aren't ready, or perhaps aren't able, to express it will instinctively craft experiences, interactions, and shared spaces that deepen connection without ever saying, "I like you." These gestures are subtle, often so small that you might almost miss them, but over time they accumulate into a pattern that speaks louder than any confession could. Notice how they linger in conversations, stretching the pauses just enough to extend your shared presence. Notice the way goodbyes seem reluctant, as if leaving your side would feel like a small loss. They may find excuses to reconnect, to cross paths more often, or to involve themselves in your world in ways that feel incidental but are deeply intentional. Philosophically, this is fascinating because it reflects the human instinct to communicate through action before words can safely be trusted. The heart often acts first, leaving the mind to rationalize later. These moments are experiments in emotional alignment. They test boundaries without confrontation. They gauge interest without risk. The person you sense is drawn to you is constantly observing, calculating, adjusting. They may notice the way you respond to small kindnesses, the subtle shift in your tone, or the micro-expressions that betray your feelings. Each of these tiny interactions becomes a form of dialogue, a conversation in gestures rather than grammar. Attraction becomes a language without vocabulary, a poetry written in proximity, timing, and attentiveness. What makes this pattern so compelling is the intentional restraint. Unspoken attraction is rarely impulsive. It is measured and cautious, born out of the fear of vulnerability and the desire to preserve dignity. This restraint gives these moments weight. They are not trivial. They are meaningful precisely because they are selective. Every shared laugh, every thoughtful inquiry, every extended glance is chosen carefully. Over time, these small choices create a silent narrative of connection, one that reveals desire far more profoundly than words could. Understanding this allows us to recognize the depth of human communication. People often wait for confessions, assuming clarity comes from speech. But clarity often arrives first in action, in the spaces between words, in what is offered quietly and repeatedly. Those who master this subtle form of expression are already building intimacy long before a single declaration is made. The takeaway is simple but powerful. Observe the moments that are created, not just the words that are spoken. Attraction, when unspoken, reveals itself in the care, presence, and thought behind every interaction. And when you begin to notice these patterns, you stop waiting for permission to understand how someone feels. You begin to see what is already happening right in front of you, and that is where true clarity and the courage to act on it begins.